Welcome back, rock stars and action figure fans, to yet another episode of From the Vault. Ricky Rocks, once again your party host, master of ceremonies, coming at you with the retro action figure review. Now, last time we talked about Batman, we talked about Mattel, we talked about the Silver Age variant on the Arkham City Batman action figure. Really awesome figure. Got a great response so far, so I'm guessing you guys maybe like Batman, maybe you want some more Batman. Well, I got some great news for you. We got a lot of Batman stuff to talk about right here on From the Vault. I've been a Batman fan since almost the beginning of my life, and I've been collecting toys for almost as long. Batman toys, always high up on my list. You know, when I see great things, I can't let them sit. I got to pick them up, so I have so many different Batman figures from so many different lines. It's really actually difficult to know where to begin. So last time we decided to just jump in with the Arkham City figure. We talked a little bit about the roots of the character, the history of the character, and I thought to myself, what better opportunity to go all the way back to the beginning, all the way back to the roots of the character, all the way back to day one. We're talking literally day one, with Detective Comics, 1939, number 27, and the first appearance of the legendary Batman. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about Mattel's take on that version of the character. We're talking about the DC Universe Batman Legacy first appearance action figure. So far, so good, right? Just looking at it in the package is really unbelievable. Makes you go, wow, you know, that's what Batman looked like on the cover of his first freaking comic book. And it has been done before. Yeah, DC Direct did one. I have that figure. Couldn't find it. Couldn't get to it, in fact. I know where it is, but I couldn't get to it because there's so much stuff in the vault. But that figure was the first time Batman's first appearance had ever been done in plastic, and now this figure does a little bit more modern take on it, circa 2011 when this line came out. Now, as a huge fan of history, of comic books, and action figures, whenever anybody does something like this, I get super excited. I'm like, man, I have to get that, because you don't see it every day. Now, that's always one of the things that bothered me. A lot of companies like Kenner and Hasbro and this and that have had the license for a lot of DC Comics characters, but in my opinion, they don't always take it as far as they could. One second. I'll extrapolate a little bit on that point. Look it up. So what I mean is, right, Kenner had the Batman license starting from 1990, and they had it for almost a decade until they got bought out by Hasbro, and then at which point the rights switched to Mattel around 2000. Now, along the way, Kenner did a million different Batman variants, to the point where if you just wanted a regular Batman, you couldn't get it. I've talked about that, I've whined about that before. You know, there was Arctic Batman and Jungle Batman and Deep Sea Batman and Solar Flare Batman and all that crap. I honestly never gave a damn about any of that. If you do, good for you. I'm sure you were in hog heaven, but I was furious for most of the 90s because I just wanted, you know, blue cape, gray spandex, yellow oval Batman. I couldn't get them. But the other thing that annoyed me was that with all of those Batman variants coming out, it was like it never occurred to these people, hey, why don't we do a figure based on how he looked in his very first appearance, or even how he looked in the 50s and 60s. You know, they did all these different figures of Batman that didn't exist, with bright orange or neon green or any of that stuff. If you're going to do that, to my logic, why wouldn't you just say, hey, also, here's this. Here's Batman from the very first issue he appeared in. Or here's Batman from, you know, the Silver Age. Any of that, you know? If you're going to have, like, you know, Zookeeper Batman or Sergeant Pepper Batman, why don't you actually do some of these variants from the comic books? It's not something they thought of until DC Direct started doing it, like, 2005. I mean, to me, it just makes sense. So I was very happy to see that Mattel was doing this Batman Legacy line with this really great packaging. I love the dark blue, very, very fitting for Batman with the dark blue. That's they cribbed the logo from Jim Lee Hush era. Pretty cool. I like that. It's the base line for the entire Legacy logo for the entire Legacy line. Good stuff. They show a little bit of artwork from the cover of Detective Comics number 27. Really awesome to see them pay homage to that classic moment. And I believe that's what the poster inside looks like as well. It's probably a recreation of that cover, that famous, famous cover. And on the back, not only do you get the full shot, but you get some text talking about the creation of the character, as well as showing the two main figures that were out at that time. You had, of course, Batman, and you had Catwoman. Now, we talked about that look of Catwoman. I mentioned that look when I did my Catwoman action figure review way back in my second video. Like I said, we're talking way back. So yeah, really great packaging. The only thing I will say, and I say this from a place of being a collector who buys so many toys and to the point where it becomes overwhelming, the only thing I can really say I don't like about these packages is that they take up a ton of space for such a relatively, not small figure, but the figure itself doesn't take up any space, but these giant packages for this line, and for a lot of the DC Mattel figures in general, it murders me, because I buy so much of this stuff, and it piles up, and if I was an in-package collector, if I was one of those guys, one of those loons, I'd have to live on a roof, because I wouldn't have room for furniture. I'd be building desks and chairs out of boxed action figures. To me, it's ridiculous. I like it, though. I mean, it definitely pops out. It definitely jumps out and says, hey, buy me, pick me up, handle me. Once you pick it up, you're taking it home, no doubt. But at the same time, it's like, does it need to be so big? I don't know. I'm just bitching because I've been cleaning up the vault the last couple of days, and it's a pain in the ass. Like, multiply something this big times a couple hundred, and you might see what I'm going through here. This is why I drink. Among other reasons. But anyway. So yeah. Detective Comics number 27, March 1939. Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Bob Kane, technically. They came up with the concept of Batman together. Now, it's become legendary and notorious that Bob Kane, he got all the credit in the end for the longest time, but as far as what he thought of when he came up with the idea generally of Batman and what actually made it to print were very different. I mean, thank God Bill Finger was in the room. Sadly, it took decades for him to get the recognition that he deserved for coming up with so much of Batman's look and accoutrement and just the general state of being of the character as we know, because Bob Kane, yeah, he came up with an idea for a guy called Batman, but it was really off the mark for what we know. I mean, his original sketch, if you've seen it, it was like a blonde guy with the domino mask and a bright red jumpsuit and wings, and it looked really dumb, and we definitely would not be talking about Batman today if that version had seen print. Thankfully, Bill Finger was in the room and said, well, I like that you're thinking, but what about something like this? And this is what made it to the page, and this is what launched an icon. Like I said, if Bob Kane's base idea had hit shelves, we would not be talking about Batman today. It's just the way it is. So Bill Finger thankfully gets a lot of credit now, but it took so long. There were many other creators like Dick Sprang, Jerry Robinson, who were really responsible for what we know of as Batman, while Bob Kane was the one who got all the money and got his name stamped all over everything. But, that's why life isn't always fair. But enough about that. The figure itself and the artwork itself. I mean, It's not Batman quite as we know him, but at the same time, you can see how even in this larval stage, so much of the basics were already in play. Now, a lot would change. The mask would change shape. The ears would point straight up instead of out to the side. The cape would change many times. The logo would change over time, very much immediately, actually, by adding ears to the Bat logo on his chest, which, as you can see, this one does not have. The gloves would change. The belt would change. A lot of things would change, but a lot of things were there right from the beginning. Now, interestingly, if you look at the figure, which is accurate to the comic book, but at the same time, if you look at the figure and the artwork, I just did that so you can get a good close-up look at it. But yeah, even if you look just on the front of the package here, if you look at the cover art to the figure, you can see that already some things were being changed on the fly, because the belt is different, the gloves are a different color, the cape is different, being one piece instead of two separate winged pieces, which is what it looks like, at least in the artwork. So the cover and the interior art of the comic book looked different. That's basically what happened here. So the figure represents how he looked inside the comic, not on the cover. To my understanding, usually the covers were produced late compared to the interior artwork. So what I'm assuming is that after they had drawn up the story, they sat down and when drawing the cover decided, hey, you know, his gloves should be blue to match the rest of his outfit, and the belt buckle should be square, not round, because those things stuck, right? This lasted only one issue very briefly, so that's what makes me think that the cover was drawn after the interior artwork was done. I'm probably right about that, but you'd have to ask anybody who was there, and they're all dead. So, anyway, we are going to take this guy out of package in just a minute. There was a whole line of these figures. They did a couple different Batmans. They did Catman, if you remember that clown. They did Catwoman. They did Joker. They did a Mr. Freeze that looked like his superpowers variant. That was kind of cool. We're going to talk about all that stuff, but first, we're going to pop this guy open, take a good, hard, solid look, and we're going to get the ins and outs, the A to the Z, Baba, on first appearance Batman from Detective Comics number 27, March 1939. And yeah, we're going to be back in just a minute. We're going to do the deal. Stick around. There it is. Batman from his first appearance in Detective Comics 27, 1939. He's got all the articulation you expect from a Mattel DC Classics style figure. Look at those details. That is exactly how he looked inside the pages of Detective Comics number 27. Right down to the purple gloves, the rounded belt buckle. Just really, really nailed the details. Only thing I can say, the head is maybe a little bit small for this body, but it looks great. It looks exactly like the character did. I've got a few minor nitpicks with it. I wish that they had given some blue highlights to the costume pieces, like the trunks and the boots. As you saw from the artwork, on the cover of the comic book, it was accented in blue. Here they went for a flat black. That's a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, you really can't be too mad about it. I mean, Mattel was not really known for doing a lot of detail, depth, and shading on the paint jobs of their figures. One thing you may notice here, which is really awesome, the interior lining of the cape has been given a bit of a dry brush to make it look more like a fabric, and I think that's really great. Really adds some nice texture and detail to the cape. I wish they had done that with the rest of the costume, but it's fine. It really makes that part of the figure stand out, I think. Just a great figure, top to bottom. Doesn't have any of the horrible mismatched grays that some of the other Batman Legacy Edition figures had. This one is really clean looking. The paint job is immaculate. The coloring is near perfect. Everything about it is so accurate, so authentic. Really, really love it. I'm sure you guys are sitting at home going, wow, I wish I had this figure. And you know what? You should have this figure. Go out and get it right now. I'm telling you. Your collection of Batman figures simply isn't complete without this one, even if you have the DC Direct version of this character. Doesn't matter. You got to go out and get this one. Can't say enough good things about it. Even comes with that awesome stand. Not necessary exactly, but it really does make things a little bit easier when you're posing your figures in your collection, or if you just want to give it a little bit extra flair. I always love when they include little extras like that. So yeah, I mean, that is it right there. That is Batman in his first appearance. We're going to get hands-on in a second, but for now, like I always like to say, drink it in, oh yeah! Batman, as he looked in his very first appearance. Gotta love that. Love everything about it. We're going to be back in just a minute with some more hands-on. Hang out. Alright, so like I said, we're going to get a little bit more hands-on and in-depth here with this first appearance Batman. Now, out of the box, I was super impressed. The only thing I could say, like I said, is the head is a little bit small for the body. It's barely noticeable. It's not really a big deal. It's just, I have an eye for things like that. No accessories. What it comes with is this little mini poster, which, like I had guessed, is a recreation of that classic, famous, beautiful cover. Detective Comics. It says May, but it came out in March. Periodicals have always done that for reasons I'm never 100% sure on. I just remember, comics and magazines, they always had the wrong month on them. They'd come out in September and say December. I don't know, screw it. But yeah, it was actually March 30th, 1939 was when this comic hit newsstands for a whopping 10 cents. And Batman wasn't even the star of the show specifically. Like, he was definitely the attraction for this issue, but the issue wasn't devoted to him specifically. It was just, he was the best thing about it. And the reaction was so strong that it didn't take long to spin him off into his own book very shortly thereafter. But yeah, back then, Batman was less of a superhero and more inspired by the pulp characters, specifically the Shadow. Huge, huge influence on Bob Kane and Bill Finger when they created the Batman. Without the Shadow, there simply wouldn't be a Batman, and that is one of the reasons why I lament the fact that that character's kind of been less relevant the last 30 years or so. I mean, it's a character from the 30s, so obviously it's gonna not still resonate as much now. But then Batman's a character from the 30s, and he's still a big deal. So why not the Shadow? There was that Alec Baldwin movie. But anyway, getting off track again as we always do. But like I said, without the Shadow, there wouldn't be a Batman. So it's just a fact of life. That was the direct roots of the character. Back then, there was a lot more in common with the Shadow than there was with, say, Superman when it came to Batman. So it took a little while for the character to evolve into the classic superhero as we know him now. But back then, strictly more of a vigilante detective, no nonsense, carried a pistol, wasn't scared to use it. He was just all about dispensing justice by any means necessary. And yeah, a lot of the things that we've come to take for granted as part of the Batman mythos simply were not there at the very beginning. A shocking amount of stuff didn't exist right out of the gate. There was no Alfred, no Robin, no Batcave, no Batmobile. There was basically just Bruce Wayne, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman. That's what it was. What would happen in a lot of the early Batman stories was that Bruce Wayne would be hanging out with his good buddy, Commissioner Gordon. Gordon would be like, boy, we're just killing ourselves over this case. We just can't figure it out. It's really frustrating. And Bruce would be like, wow, that's a real thinker. Oh, have a nice day. And then, mysteriously, that same night, Batman would go out and solve the case and catch all the bad guys and beat them up and put them in jail. And then the next day, Gordon would be like, "Boy, Bruce, it was really amazing that Batman character showed up." I mean, I'm assuming people in the 30s were a lot dumber, just in general. I mean, if you watch TV and stuff, you kind of get a feeling for that. But yeah, I'm just assuming everybody was really dim until like the 80s at the earliest. They're still pretty stupid, but back then, I'm assuming they were a lot more stupid. But anyway, getting off track again. We do that sometimes. But yeah, like I said, there's a great looking figure. Only thing I wish is that they had, done some blue highlights on more of the outfit to give it a little bit more authentic comic book flair. But Mattel usually kept the paint simple on these kind of figures. So I understand it. It just would have made the figure pop a little bit more. But as it is, it's fine. It looks great. And get ready to take a shot because we're going to say it. It is iconic. Every time. But yeah, so comes with this base. Base is really cool. Only thing I don't like about it is that it barely goes into the foothold. It doesn't really... It's a little bit too small for the foothold. Like, it fits, but it comes out super easy. So, I mean, maybe if you care that much, a little bit of glue, they can maybe fix that. But yeah, it's a basic base. It's just the bat symbol and his name on it. But it's cool. Like I said, I always like little extras like that. I never turn them down, and that's more well done than some of the other ones that have come with various other figures. Mattel didn't usually give you a base or a stand. So that's a nice little extra. Yeah, figure itself, you get all the same articulation you would get in a DC Direct figure, as far as the elbows, the swivels, and the biceps, the wrists. Same shoulders, same waist, same ab crunch, same leg articulation. This is basically a standard Mattel DC Universe Classics with some different detailing. This is the only Batman figure to come with this belt, this head, this cape, and these gloves. Now, I like that they went to the trouble of actually making gloves instead of just painting his hands purple, because sometimes Mattel would do chintzy little stuff like that, but here, as you can see, they actually have sculpted gloves. The color purple is pretty close to what was in the books. These are little details, but I always appreciate them. It would have been easier to just give them regular hands and paint them purple, but they did sculpt some nice stuff on there. It looks really cool. The belt, again, only place you saw that belt was Detective Comics 27 with the round buckle. Pretty cool. The capsules were a standard right from the beginning. The only thing is that the articulation's limited a little bit in the legs by the belt. It's just the belt is so big. That's always a problem with any Mattel Batman figure, is that the utility belt gets in the way when you try to move his legs forward. So you still have okay articulation, especially if you manipulate the other leg too. But, they don't go up as high. Now, this Batman figure is quite limited by the cape as for how you can move his arms. Now, the cape is a nice soft rubbery plastic. It's softer than most of the capes in the Mattel line, but it is kind of hard around the shoulders to help it keep the shape. And as such, you have some give in the cape when you move the arms, but it is going to really fight you if you try to move the arms up higher than a certain point. And you can't move them 360 because of the cape, but you can get them pretty high up there, as you can see. So it's not perfect as far as function, but it is perfect as far as look. I mean, that really is a unique looking cape for a Batman figure, and honestly, I wish they would have used this kind of cape just for the sake of it on more Mattel Batman figures. Even though it does take some of the articulation away from the arms, I just wish that they had done more figures that were based on a specific artist's style, like DC Direct did, and had used this kind of a cape. I mean, it could be longer, but still looks really great. Looks just like it did in that first comic book. No complaints with it, other than the fact you do lose some shoulder and arm articulation. But, I mean, I don't really take these things out and play with them that much. I just kind of move them around a little bit, pose them, show them off. So, it works for what I need it to, which is really nothing. But it's great all around. It's just a really great Batman figure. It's really at least as good, if not better, than the DC Direct one. The biggest difference between that figure and this figure, aside from the articulation, is that the DC Direct version of this character had a really nice, long cloth goods cape with some posable wire inside of it, and really helped you get the most out of the figure, and it didn't interfere with the articulation because it was fabric. You could just drape it over the shoulders or behind the shoulders. Here, obviously, you're stuck with what they give you. So that was a point in favor of the DC Direct. We'll talk about that when I do come around to reviewing that figure, which I'm absolutely going to. We'll do a little bit of compare and contrast, because I love to do that. But yeah, as far as the details go, the only things I could even think of changing would be, maybe the cape could be a little bit different, but if not that, I would have made the head just a hair bigger, and I would have given some blue highlights to the trunks and the boots, and maybe even the mask, just to really put it over. But, it's fine. I love how they did the blue with the black shadows inside the cape. That is more detail than Mattel usually gave us, so that really excites me. It definitely is going to make this figure stand out a lot on the shelf next to my other ones, my other Batmans especially, because I have a ton, and this one is an A++, all about it. Really glad Mattel gave us this legacy line of Batman figures. Only complaint I have with it is that they didn't do enough of them for my taste. They could have done, Jim Aparo Batman. They could have done Norm Brayfogle. They could have done a lot. But at least they gave us this figure here and a couple other great ones. Like I said, this one really is a cut above most of the other Legacy Edition Mattel Batmans, because the gray is all one uniform color, whereas with some of the other Batmans, they got really lazy and they would just smash parts from other Batman figures together, and the grays didn't always match, so it was very, very annoying. This one here is perfect. This is as close to perfect as a Mattel figure was going to get, based on the first appearance Batman. Gotta love it. Can't say enough great things about it. I know I say that about a lot of things, but yeah, definitely really happy to have this figure and take him out of the box. Doesn't get much better than this. Gotham City just got a lot more safe with the original. Actually, he didn't protect Gotham City back then. So, yeah, fuck Gotham City. Yeah, that was another thing. He wasn't even from Gotham until he showed up like 3 or 4 times. He was from, at first they didn't say where he was. It was just the city, and then it was New York, and then it was Gotham City. So, again, it's crazy, but so much of the things we think were always there right from the beginning. Nope, a lot of things weren't there from the beginning. So that's one of the things that excites me, going from the old school to the new school, like I like to say. And even right here, right? This was the other figure we talked about from the Batman Legacy line. Now, you see the old school and new school in the same frame right there. The Arkham City Batman's quite a bit taller, noticeably so. But, even in the comics, Batman got a lot bigger and more jacked the more time went on, so can't really even argue with that there. But yeah, I mean, Mattel really nailed these figures, these 2 Batman figures specifically. They really hit home runs on, and can't say enough good things about them. Just wanted to kind of, since they're both from the Batman Legacy line of Mattel figures, I wanted to kind of show them off. We got a little bit of the oldest of old school, and a little bit of the old school meets new school with this one. So I'm just going to put you back over there where you were. Any excuse to get more figures out. That's me. So yeah, that was that's how this one should be. This is exactly how they should have done it. This is I'm overwhelmed. I actually like it better than the Arkham City one just because this is a version of Batman that almost never gets any love, and I think that's a shame. I think it's a shame that it took so long to start getting any figures at all of this version of Batman, but I'm so happy that if they're going to do it, that they're this awesome. Great job, Mattel, on that. Let's see if McFarlane can give us something like this pretty soon. I'd be all about that. So, until next time, we're going to wrap it up. Next time, we're going to be doing a little bit more stuff from the Batman Legacy line, so you can be excited about that. Now, we talked about, Batman, but that leaves the door open for maybe some characters from the other side of the coin, maybe some of the villains of Gotham City. So maybe something exciting to think about and look forward to there. But that's going to be on another day, another episode. Till then, this has been Ricky Rocks coming at you with the retro action figure review. Till next time, take your toys out of the package, let them breathe, move them around, enjoy them the way they're supposed to be, and above all, take good care of them. You don't want to get something awesome like this and then have it go to shit because of you. Take care of your stuff, please. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Till next time, Ricky Rocks, preaching to the choir, I know. We're going to see you real soon, I promise. Till then, if you can't be good, be bad. Or be Batman.